A werewolf romance story by the Alpha's Claim Collection. Prologue. I was 7 years old the day I watched my parents burn alive. 7 years old when I learned that being an Omega werewolf wasn't just about being weak, it was about being prey. I remember the smell. Burning flesh mixed with wolfsbane and smoke, a combination so vile that, even now, 10 years later, I can't stand near a bonfire without my stomach turning. I remember the sounds. My mother's screams cutting through the night like shattered glass. My father's howls, not of a wolf, but of a man watching his mate die and being powerless to stop it. The crackling of wood as our home became a funeral pyre. And the laughter. Gods, the laughter of the rogues who circled our burning house like it was entertainment, like my family's death was a show put on for their amusement. But what I remember most clearly, with the strange precision that comes with absolute devastation, was the moment I realized I was alone. Completely, terrifyingly alone in a world that had just taught me that love could be burned away, that safety was an illusion, that being an Omega meant your life was worth less than the match that lit the fire. My name is Thea, and this is the story of how I went from the Pack's broken Omega to the Moon's chosen weapon. From the girl who survived the flames to the Luna they never saw coming. But let me take you back to the beginning. To the night everything ended. To my 7th birthday. Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Sydney, midnight in Berlin, afternoon in New York, or evening in Canada, I want to know where in the world my pack is listening from. And while you're down there, smash that like button and subscribe if you're ready for a story about an Omega who goes from slave to the most powerful wolf alive. Don't just sit back. Tell me where you are. Now let's get started. Chapter 1. The Night of Flames. The world ended for me on a Thursday. I know that's a strange thing to remember, what day of the week it was. But when you're 7 years old and your entire existence is being ripped apart, your mind latches onto the smallest, most meaningless details. Thursday. It had been raining earlier. The kind of spring rain that makes everything smell like earth and new growth and promise. There had been cake that morning. Chocolate, my favorite. Mama had made it herself, sneaking the extra frosting when Papa wasn't looking. They'd sung to me, their voices blending in that perfect harmony that only true mates could achieve. Papa had given me a wooden carving he'd made, a wolf mid-leap, so detailed I could see individual first strokes. For my little wolf, he'd said, pressing it into my palm. For when you're ready to run with the pack. I'd clutched it to my chest, not knowing it would be the last gift I'd ever receive. Not knowing that in 12 hours, I'd be clutching it for an entirely different reason. I was in my room when they came. I'd been reading by lamplight or trying to. I was only 7 and the words still jumbled sometimes, dancing across the page like they were playing a game I didn't know the rules to. But Papa said reading was important, that knowledge was a kind of strength that no one could take from you. He was wrong about that last part. The first sound was glass shattering downstairs. I froze, the book falling from my hands. Thea. Mama's voice, sharp with fear. Thea, hide. No. I didn't understand. Didn't know what was happening. But something in her tone, something primal and ancient, made my 7-year-old body move before my mind could question. I scrambled off my bed and dove into my closet, pulling the door shut just as I heard the footsteps. Heavy. Multiple. The stairs creaking under weight that didn't belong. Where is she? A voice. Male. Rough like gravel. Where's the girl? There is no girl. That was Papa, and I'd never heard him sound like that. Cold. Deadly. The voice of a wolf protecting his den. You've made a mistake coming here. No mistake. Another voice, this one oily and amused. We know what she is. We know what you've been hiding. Did you really think you could keep a true Omega secret? Did you think we wouldn't find out? True Omega. I didn't know what that meant. Didn't understand why Mama gasped like she'd been struck. She's just a child, Mama pleaded, and the desperation in her voice made my chest hurt. She hasn't even had her first shift. She's no threat to anyone. Please, please just leave her alone. Can't do that. The oily voice again. Orders are orders. The true Omega bloodline ends tonight. What happened next happened fast. I heard Papa's growl, the sound of shifting bones cracking and reforming. I heard furniture breaking, snarling, the wet sound of claws tearing through flesh. I heard Mama scream. And then I smelled it. Smoke. I pressed my eye to the crack in the closet door and saw orange light flickering across my bedroom wall. Heard the whoosh of flames catching, spreading, consuming. Burn it all, someone commanded. Make sure there's nothing left. No evidence. No survivors. What about the girl? If she's in there, the fire will take care of her. If she got out, she's 7 years old and Omega. She won't survive the forest alone. Either way, problem solved. More laughter. More of that terrible, casual cruelty that treated my family's murder like it was nothing. Like we were nothing. The smoke was getting thicker now, seeping under my closet door, filling my small hiding space. I coughed, trying to stay quiet, trying not to give away my position. But my lungs burned. My eyes watered. The wooden wolf carving was still in my hand, and I held it so tight the edges cut into my palm. Mama, I whispered, so quietly I barely heard myself. Papa. No answer. Just the roar of flames and the sound of the house dying around me. I don't know how long I stayed in that closet. It felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The heat was unbearable. The smoke was choking me. I was going to die here, I realized. Going to burn just like Mama and Papa. And I was so scared. Then something strange happened. The closet door flew open, not from wind, not from the fire, but like invisible hands had pulled it. And I felt something. A presence. Warm but not burning. Gentle but insistent. It wrapped around me like arms, like protection, and I heard a voice. Not with my ears, but in my mind. Run, little wolf. Your time has not come. Run. I didn't question it. Didn't think. I just ran. Through my burning bedroom, down the stairs that were already collapsing, past shapes on the floor that I refused to look at because if I looked, if I saw, I would break completely. Through the front door that hung open, flames licking at its frame. I ran into the night, into the rain-soaked forest, and I didn't stop running until my legs gave out and I collapsed in the mud, gasping and sobbing and clutching Papa's wooden wolf like it was the only real thing left in the world. That's where Alpha Donovan Blackwood found me. I was covered in soot and ash, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. I looked up at him through the darkness, this massive man with hard eyes and a harder expression, and I waited for him to help me, to comfort me, to tell me everything would be okay. He looked down at me with the same expression someone might give a piece of trash they'd found on the road. Mildly disgusted. Vaguely inconvenienced. "An Omega," he said flatly, and I heard the disappointment in his voice. The dismissal. "Your parents." I couldn't speak. Could only shake my head. He sighed, a sound of pure frustration. "Of course they are." He was quiet for a moment, and I saw him calculating something behind those cold eyes. Then, "Get up. You're coming with me. W.I." The word came out broken, barely a whisper. "Because leaving you here makes me look weak." He said it without shame, without pretense. Just cold, brutal honesty. "My pack will think I'm heartless if I abandon a child, even an Omega child. So you'll come back to Blackwood territory. You'll work for your keep. You'll stay out of sight and out of mind. Understood?" I stared at him, 7 years old and shattered, and slowly nodded. "Good." He turned and started walking, not checking to see if I followed. "Welcome to Blackwood Pack, Omega. Try not to be more trouble than you're worth." I followed him into the darkness, leaving behind the burning remains of my home, my parents, my childhood. I was 7 years old, and I had learned that the world was cruel. That being Omega meant being worthless. That love could be taken from you in flames and laughter. I didn't know then that this was just the beginning. Didn't know about the true Omega bloodline, about the prophecy, about the power sleeping inside me waiting for the right moment to wake. I didn't know that 10 years later, I would stop being prey and become something the wolf world had never seen coming. But I would learn. Gods, I would learn. Chapter 2. 10 years of nothing. 10 years. That's how long I survived in the Blackwood Pack. 10 years of being invisible, of scrubbing floors until my hands bled, of eating scraps after everyone else had their fill, of sleeping in a basement room that flooded every time it rained. 10 years of being nothing. I was 17 now, no longer the terrified 7-year-old who'd stumbled out of the forest covered in ash. I'd grown taller, though I was still small for a werewolf. Still too thin, too pale, too breakable looking. My dark hair had grown long because I couldn't afford to cut it. My green eyes, mama's eyes, had learned to stay downcast, to never meet an alpha's gaze directly. I'd learned the rules. Keep your head down. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't expect kindness. Don't hope for more. Don't dream. But that last one was harder than the others. My first shift had come when I was 13. I'd been terrified, remembering the older wolves talking about how beautiful it was, how freeing, how you finally became whole when you met your wolf for the first time. Mine was agony. I'd locked myself in my basement room, feeling the pull of the full moon like fish hooks in my bones. The shift started, and I screamed. Bones breaking, reforming, breaking again, but not finishing. My wolf tried to emerge and couldn't. Something was wrong. Broken. I'd ended up on the floor, caught between human and wolf, neither one nor the other, just pain and failure and the crushing realization that even my wolf didn't want to fully exist. When it finally stopped, when I'd shifted back to human and curled into a ball on the cold concrete, I'd cried for the first time since the night of the fire. Defective, I'd heard them whisper the next day when I limped through my chores, my body still aching from the incomplete shift. Even her wolf knows she's worthless. I didn't argue. How could I? They were right. My days blurred together. Wake before dawn. Start the kitchen fires. Prepare breakfast for the pack. Clean the dining hall while they ate. Wash dishes. Scrub floors. Prepare lunch. More cleaning. Prepare dinner. More dishes. Collapse into bed. Repeat. 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 The only variation came from the cruelty. Some days it was verbal, insults, mockery, reminders of my place. Some days it was physical, a shove here, a kick there, nothing that would leave permanent marks, but enough to remind me I was prey. The worst was Vivian. Alpha Donovan's daughter was 19, beautiful in that sharp-edged way that made people stop and stare. She had her father's cold eyes and her mother's perfect features, and she wielded her status like a weapon. Omega, she'd call, never using my name. You missed a spot on the floor. Clean it again. I'd cleaned it 3 times already. But I'd get on my hands and knees and clean it a 4th. Omega, my breakfast is cold. Make it again. It wasn't cold, but I'd make it again. Omega, you're breathing too loud. Go somewhere else. I'd leave whatever room she was in, even if I'd been there first. I endured it all because what choice did I have? I was alone. Powerless. Omega. But there was one person who was different. Kale. Kale was Alpha Donovan's younger son, 19 years old, and everything his sister wasn't. Where Vivian was cruel, he was kind. Where she was cold, he was warm. Where she looked through me like I was invisible, he saw me. He'd started leaving books for me when I was 14. I'd find them in the kitchen, tucked beside the flour sacks or hidden behind the pots. Always books about faraway places, about heroes and magic and worlds where being different meant being special, not worthless. I never knew how he figured out I could read. Papa had taught me before he died, and I'd kept it secret, afraid someone would take even that small joy away from me. But somehow Kale knew. We didn't speak often. It was too dangerous for both of us. An Alpha's son showing kindness to an Omega servant would be seen as weakness, and I'd learned that weakness was punished in Blackwood Pack. But sometimes, late at night when I was cleaning the kitchen, he'd appear. Thea. He was the only one who used my name. You shouldn't be here, I'd whisper, not looking up from the pot I was scrubbing. Probably not. I'd hear the smile in his voice. Did you finish the book? Yes. And? It was beautiful. I'd risk a glance at him then, and my breath would catch the way it always did. He was tall, broad-shouldered like all alpha males, but there was something gentle in his dark eyes. Something that made me believe, just for a moment, that not all wolves were cruel. Thank you. You deserve beautiful things, Thea. He'd say it so quietly, so earnestly, that it made my chest ache. You deserve more than this. I'm Omega, I'd remind him. Remind myself. This is all I get. That's not true. Isn't it? He'd go quiet then, because we both knew it was. We both knew the world we lived in, the hierarchy that couldn't be challenged, the way things were and would always be. But still, he'd leave me another book. And still, I'd read it. And still, I'd let myself pretend, just for those stolen pages, that life could be different. I had a secret, though. Something I'd never told anyone, not even in the books Cale left me where I sometimes wrote notes in the margins. I could feel things. Not physically, emotionally. When Vivian was angry, I felt it like heat against my skin. When the other pack members were sad, I felt it like weight in my chest. When Alpha Donovan was calculating something cruel, I felt it like ice down my spine. At first, I thought everyone felt this way. But I'd learned by watching, by listening, that they didn't. They couldn't sense what others were feeling. Couldn't tell when someone was lying by the discord between their words and their emotions. It was overwhelming. Constant. Like standing in a room where everyone was screaming their feelings at me, and I couldn't turn down the volume. I didn't know what it meant. Didn't understand why I had this ability when I couldn't even shift properly. I just knew it was one more way I was different. One more thing to hide. So I kept my head down, felt everything, said nothing, and survived. 10 years of nothing, I thought as I scrubbed the floors that Thursday evening, my 17th birthday passing unmarked and unmourned. 10 years of barely existing. I didn't know that everything was about to change. I didn't know that tomorrow Alpha Donovan would make an announcement that would shatter my carefully maintained invisibility. I didn't know that in 48 hours, I'd discover exactly what I was. What I'd always been. But I would learn. Gods, I would learn. Chapter 3. The Announcement. The announcement came on Friday morning during breakfast. I was serving, moving silently between the tables with platters of food, making myself as invisible as possible. This was when I was most vulnerable, when the whole pack was gathered, when their emotions crashed over me in waves so strong I sometimes had to grip the edge of a table to stay upright. Today was worse than usual. There was an energy in the air. Anticipation. Excitement. Something big was coming. Alpha Donovan stood at the head table, and the pack fell silent. When an alpha wanted attention, he got it. I have news, he announced, his voice carrying through the hall. Good news for Blackwood Pack and our future. Vivian sat beside him, her face smug. She knew what was coming. I could feel her satisfaction like syrup, thick and cloying. My daughter, Vivian, will be mated. Cheers erupted. I felt the pack's approval wash over me. They love this, the spectacle, the politics of it all. Alpha Ryker of the Northern Pack has agreed to the union, Donovan continued. The ceremony will take place in 2 weeks. This alliance will strengthen our borders, increase our territory, and secure Blackwood's position as one of the most powerful packs in the region. More cheers. Vivian stood, accepting congratulations with practiced grace. I felt nothing from her that resembled love or happiness. Just cold satisfaction at her increased status. Just the pleasure of knowing she'd be the most important she-wolf in 2 packs instead of 1. The ceremony will be elaborate, Alpha Donovan said. A display of Blackwood's wealth and power. We'll host 5 packs, maybe more. It will require significant preparation. His eyes swept the room and landed on me. My stomach dropped. Omega, he called, and everyone turned to look at me. I felt their attention like spotlights, burning and invasive. You'll be responsible for the preparations. Decorations, food, coordination. All of it. I kept my head down, my voice steady. Yes, Alpha. Don't disappoint me, he said, and there was a warning in his tone. A threat. This ceremony reflects on all of Blackwood. If you fail, there will be consequences. I understand, Alpha. He dismissed me with a wave, already turning back to the celebrating pack. I backed away, and as soon as I was out of the dining hall, I ran. I made it to the kitchen before the tears came. Stupid. Crying was stupid. I'd learned years ago that tears changed nothing, helped nothing, fixed nothing. But sometimes the weight of it all, the invisibility, the cruelty, the constant reminder that I was less than everyone else, became too much. I pressed my hands against the cold stone counter and tried to breathe through it. This was impossible. Planning a mating ceremony for 5 packs in 2 weeks? It normally took months. They'd need food for hundreds, decorations, coordination with visiting alphas, sleeping arrangements, security. It was designed to fail. Designed to give them a reason to punish me when I inevitably couldn't meet their impossible standards. You're panicking. I spun around, heart racing. Kale stood in the kitchen doorway, concern etched on his face. He crossed the space between us in 3 strides, and before I could stop him, he'd taken my hands in his. The moment we touched, I gasped. Warmth. Actual warmth, spreading from where his skin met mine. Not the burning heat of embarrassment or the cold heat of anger I usually felt from others. This was different. Gentle. Like sunlight after rain. And I could feel what he felt. Worry for me. Anger at his father. And something else. Something deeper that made my breath catch and my heart stutter. He felt it too. His eyes widened, his pupils dilating. His grip on my hands tightened. What he breathed. We stood frozen, staring at each other. The kitchen around us seemed to fade. There was just this connection, this impossible warmth, this feeling of rightness that I'd never experienced before. Then footsteps in the hall, and we sprang apart. Kale stepped back, his face flushed. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. It's fine, I said quickly, even though it wasn't. Even though my hands still tingled where he'd touched them. Even though I could still feel the echo of his emotions, fading but not gone. You should go. Thea. Please. He looked like he wanted to argue. Wanted to stay. But more footsteps were approaching, and if we were found alone, it would be bad for him and catastrophic for me. I'm sorry, he said again, softer this time. For what my father's done to you. For what we've all done. Then he was gone, and I was alone in the kitchen with trembling hands and a heart that wouldn't stop racing. What was that? That warmth, that connection? I didn't have time to figure it out. Vivian appeared in the doorway, her expression sharp. Omega, she said, and I heard the pleasure in her voice. She was going to enjoy this. I have a list of requirements for the ceremony. I expect them all to be met. Perfectly. She handed me a scroll. I unrolled it, scanning the contents, and my heart sank. It was impossible. All of it. She knew it. I knew it. Any questions? She asked sweetly. No, Vivian. That's Miss Vivian to you, Omega. She smiled, cold and cruel. 2 weeks. Don't disappoint us. She left, and I looked down at the list in my hands. Ice sculptures. Imported flowers. 5 different entrees. Decorations in silver and white. Musicians from the Eastern Pack. Wine from. The list went on and on. I sank onto a kitchen stool, the scroll heavy in my hands. I was going to fail. They were going to punish me. And there was nothing I could do about it. My fingers drifted to my pocket where I always kept Papa's wooden wolf carving. I pulled it out, ran my thumb over the worn surface. I don't know what to do, I whispered to it, to him, to the memory of parents who'd loved me before the world taught me that love was dangerous. The wooden wolf had no answers. But my hands still tingled where Kale had touched them. And somewhere deep inside me, in a place I didn't understand and couldn't access, something stirred. Something that had been sleeping for 10 years. Something that was starting to wake up. Chapter 4. 2 weeks of impossible. The next 2 weeks were hell. I worked 20 hours a day, sleeping in short bursts on the kitchen floor when exhaustion finally claimed me. My hands were raw from cleaning, burned from cooking, bleeding from handling ice and thorns and the 100 other things Vivian's impossible list required. But somehow, impossibly, it was coming together. The decorations arrived. Silver and white fabric that I hung myself, climbing ladders at midnight when the pack was asleep. The flowers were imported from 3 territories away, requiring me to coordinate with traders I'd never met and negotiate prices with money that wasn't mine. The food was the hardest part. 5 different entrees, each one a traditional dish from a different pack, each one requiring ingredients I'd never worked with and techniques I had to learn from borrowed cookbooks. I didn't eat much. Couldn't afford the time. My body ran on adrenaline and fear and the desperate knowledge that failure meant punishment I didn't want to imagine. Kale tried to help. He'd appear in the kitchen late at night, offering to carry heavy crates or test recipes or just keep me company while I worked. Each time, I'd send him away. Not because I didn't want his help, I was desperate for it, but because the risk was too great. Because every time he came near me, I felt that warmth again. That connection. And it was getting stronger. "You're going to work yourself to death," he said one night, finding me slumped over the kitchen table at 3 a.m, my hands cramping around a pen as I tried to finalize the seating arrangements. "Then I'll die productive," I muttered, not looking up. "Thea." He sat across from me, and even without touching, I could feel his concern. It wrapped around me like a blanket, warm and careful. "Let me help. Please." "You can't." "Why not?" "Because every time you're near me, I feel like I can breathe for the first time in 10 years. Because your emotions are the only ones that don't hurt when they hit me. Because I'm starting to think about you when I should be thinking about survival, and that's dangerous and I can't afford dangerous. Because it's not your responsibility," I said instead. "I was given this task. I'll complete it. You're going to collapse. Probably. That's not funny." "I'm not laughing." He was quiet for a moment. "Then, you don't have to do everything alone, you know. You don't have to carry all of this by yourself." "Yes, I do." I finally looked up at him, and the concern in his dark eyes made my chest ache. "That's what being Omega means. That's what being alone means. You're not alone. Aren't I?" I gestured around the empty kitchen. "It's 3 a.m, Kale. Everyone else is asleep. It's just me and 100 tasks I'll never finish and the certainty that even if I do everything perfectly, it still won't be enough. So yes, I'm alone." Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe. Or determination. He reached across the table and took my hand. The warmth came immediately, stronger this time. I gasped, trying to pull away, but he held firm. "You're not alone," he repeated, and this time I could feel the truth of it. Could feel his conviction, his protectiveness, his... I jerked my hand back, standing so fast my chair toppled. "Don't," I whispered, my heart racing. "Please don't. Thea, you need to go. I just want to help." Then help by leaving me alone. The words came out harsher than I intended, but I needed him to go. Needed him to stop being kind. Stop making me hope for things I couldn't have. Stop making me feel like maybe I could be more than invisible. "Please, Kale. Just go." He stared at me for a long moment. I felt his hurt, his frustration, his reluctance to leave. But he went. And I was alone again with my lists and my exhaustion and my bleeding hands. The way it should be. The way it had to be. The night before the ceremony, I finally finished. The great hall looked like something from a fairy tale. Silver and white fabric draped from the ceiling, catching the light from hundreds of candles. Flowers I couldn't name filled every corner, their scent sweet and overwhelming. The tables were set with dishes I'd polished until they gleamed. The food was prepared, waiting in cold storage. The musicians had arrived and rehearsed. The guest rooms were ready. Everything on Vivian's impossible list was complete. I stood in the center of the hall at midnight, alone, and allowed myself one moment of pride. I'd done it. Against all odds, with no help, working myself to the bone, I'd done it. Then I felt them. Emotions, approaching fast. Anger. Cold satisfaction. Anticipation of cruelty. Vivian entered the hall, and she wasn't alone. 3 of her friends flanked her, all alpha females, all looking at my work with critical eyes. "Well," Vivian said, walking slowly through the space. She ran a finger along a table, inspected a flower arrangement, studied the fabric draping. "I suppose it's adequate." Adequate. 2 weeks of hell, and she called it adequate. I kept my face neutral, my voice respectful. "I'm glad it meets your standards, Miss Vivian." I didn't say it met my standards. She turned to face me, and I saw it in her eyes. She'd been waiting for this. Planning it. I said it was adequate. But adequate isn't good enough for my mating ceremony, is it? My stomach dropped. I completed everything on the list. Did you? She pulled a scroll from her pocket. Not the one she'd given me. A different one. Because I distinctly remember asking for white roses. These are cream. The supplier said white roses weren't available. Then you should have found a different supplier. She walked closer, her friends circling around me. I felt their emotions, eagerness for violence, hunger for my humiliation. I also asked for crystal goblets. These are glass. They're crystal. They're glass pretending to be crystal. I can tell the difference, Omega. Can't you? She couldn't. I knew she couldn't. But it didn't matter. And this fabric. She grabbed a handful of the draping I'd spent hours hanging. It's wrinkled. It wasn't. It was perfect. I gave you one job, Vivian said, her voice rising. One simple job. And you failed. I didn't. Her hand cracked across my face. I stumbled back, tasting blood. Felt the sharp satisfaction from Vivian and her friends. Felt their pleasure at my pain. Don't talk back to me, Omega. Vivian grabbed my hair, yanking my head back. You've disappointed me. Disappointed the pack. Disappointed my father. Do you know what happens to Omegas who disappoint? I did. I'd seen it. Watched other Omegas be beaten, starved, locked away for failures real and imagined. I'm sorry, I whispered, hating myself for it. Hating the fear in my voice. I'll fix it. I'll make it perfect. Too late. She shoved me backward, and I fell, hitting the ground hard. The ceremony is tomorrow. There's no time to fix your mistakes. So you'll be punished after. Severely. Understand? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Good. She turned to leave, her friends following. At the door, she paused. Oh, and Omega? You're not to attend the ceremony. Stay in your room. I don't want your pathetic face ruining my perfect day. Then they were gone, and I was alone on the floor of the beautiful hall I'd created, bleeding and broken and reminded once again that no matter what I did, no matter how hard I worked, I would never be enough. I touched my split lip, felt the warm blood. And something inside me cracked. Not broke. Cracked. Like an egg about to hatch. Like a seed about to sprout. Like something that had been sleeping for 10 years, patiently waiting, was finally ready to wake up. I just didn't know it yet. Chapter 5. The Ceremony. I stayed in my basement room the next day as ordered. But I could hear everything. The arrival of the visiting packs. The excited chatter as guests filled the great hall I'd prepared. The music starting, the ceremony beginning. I sat on my narrow cot, Papa's wooden wolf in my hands, and listened to Vivian's mating ceremony happen without me. My face still throbbed where she'd hit me. My split lip had scabbed over. I'd woken up with a bruise blooming across my cheek, dark purple against my pale skin. It didn't matter. No one would see it. No one would care. I closed my eyes and tried to block out the sounds of celebration above me. Tried to block out the emotions that seeped through the floorboards, joy, excitement, anticipation. None of it for me. None of it ever for me. Then I felt it. Something different. A wave of emotions so strong it made me gasp. Disgust. Rage. Humiliation. It was coming from the great hall, and it was growing stronger. I stood, moving to the small window near the ceiling of my room. I couldn't see much, just feet, the bottom of the great hall doors. But I could hear. I didn't come all this way for damaged goods. The voice was deep, commanding. Alpha voice. This had to be Ryker. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Find out what? That was Alpha Donovan, and I felt his confusion, his rising anger. That your daughter has been spreading her legs for half the unmated males in your pack. Ryker's voice was cold, mocking. Did you really think you could pawn off a whore as a pure mate? Gasps from the crowd. I felt the shock ripple through the assembled packs. That's a lie. Vivian's voice, shrill with panic. Is it? Ryker laughed, cruel and sharp. I have witnesses. Names. Dates. Your precious daughter isn't fit to be a Luna. She's barely fit to be a pack member. The emotions from above were chaotic now. Shame from Vivian. Rage from Alpha Donovan. Shock and gleeful scandal from the guests. Then leave, Alpha Donovan snarled. Get out of my territory. Oh, I'm leaving. Ryker's voice moved, like he was walking through the hall. But I didn't come all this way for nothing. I'll take something of value from Blackwood, even if it's not your ruined daughter. Then I felt it. His attention, his focus, shifting, searching, and landing on someone. That made his emotions spike with interest. That Omega, he said, and my blood ran cold. The one serving. The small one with dark hair. She smells pure, untouched. And there's something else. Something unusual about her scent. No. You can't be serious, Alpha Donovan said. Why not? An Omega for an Omega seems fair. Ryker's voice was closer now, like he was moving toward wherever I'd been assigned to serve. But I wasn't there. I was locked in the basement. Where is she? Not here, Vivian said quickly, and I felt her malicious satisfaction. She's being punished. In the basement. Bring her up. She's just an Omega servant, Alpha Donovan protested. She's nothing. Surely you don't. I want to see her. Command, not request. Now. Footsteps on the stairs. Coming down. Coming for me. I backed away from the door, my heart hammering. This couldn't be happening. I'd stayed hidden, stayed invisible, stayed out of the way. I'd done everything right. The door opened. One of the pack guards stood there, his face impassive. Alpha Ryker wants to see you, he said. Let's go. I don't want. Wasn't asking what you want, Omega. He grabbed my arm, hauling me toward the door. Move. He dragged me up the stairs, through the corridor, toward the great hall. I could feel the emotions intensifying as we got closer. Hundreds of wolves, all focused on the drama unfolding. We entered the hall, and every eye turned to me. I kept my head down, my body trembling. The guard shoved me forward, and I stumbled, barely catching myself. Look at me, Omega. Ryker's voice. I didn't want to. Everything in me screamed to stay invisible, stay small, stay safe. I said, look at me. Slowly, I raised my head. Ryker was massive. Taller than Alpha Donovan, broader, with scars crossing his face and arms. His eyes were ice blue and completely devoid of warmth. He looked at me the way a predator looks at prey. Assessing, calculating, hungry. He moved closer, and I flinched. He noticed and smiled. Afraid, he asked. Good. Fear keeps Omegas obedient. He circled me slowly, and I felt his satisfaction growing. She's scrawny. Probably half-starved. But she'll fill out. And that scent. He inhaled deeply. There's power in her bloodline. Distant, maybe, but it's there. She's worthless, Vivian said desperately. Defective. She can't even shift properly. Please, Alpha Ryker, I can explain about the males. It was a misunderstanding. I don't want explanations. Ryker stopped in front of me, his hand shooting out to grip my chin, forcing my head up. I want compensation. And this little Omega will do nicely. You can't, I whispered. His grip tightened, painful. What was that? You can't take me. My voice was stronger now, even though I was shaking. I'm not property. I'm not something to be traded because you're disappointed in your political arrangement. His eyes widened. Then he laughed. She has spirit. I'll enjoy breaking that. Let her go. The voice came from across the hall. Kale. He pushed through the crowd, his face set with determination. I felt his emotions, fury at Ryker, protectiveness toward me, and underneath it all, that warmth. That connection that I didn't understand. Stay out of this, boy, Ryker said dismissively. She's under my protection, Kale said, moving to stand between us. You don't have the authority to grant protection. Alpha Donovan's voice was hard. You're not Alpha. Then I challenge you for it. Kale turned to face his father, and the hall erupted in shocked murmurs. I challenge you for the right to protect her. You can't be serious. Donovan stared at his son like he'd gone mad. You challenge your own father? For an Omega. For what's right. Kale's voice didn't waver. You brought her into this pack. You took responsibility for her when her parents died. And you've treated her like garbage for 10 years. That ends now. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't believe what I was hearing. Alpha Donovan's face went red with rage. You insolent. Do you accept the challenge or not? The hall was silent. Every wolf waited. Alpha Donovan's jaw clenched. Then, I accept. And when I win, boy, she's going to Northern Pack with Ryker. And you're going to watch her go, knowing you couldn't save her. Chapter 6, The Awakening. They cleared space in the center of the hall. Kale and Alpha Donovan faced each other, and I felt the shift in the room. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about power, about authority, about a son challenging his father for the first time. Last chance to back down, Donovan said. No. Kale's voice was steady. They shifted. I'd seen wolves shift before, but never like this. Never alphas in challenge. Their bones cracked and reformed, their bodies expanding, fur rippling across skin. Within seconds, two massive wolves stood where men had been. Alpha Donovan was larger, more experienced, scarred from dozens of fights. His wolf was dark gray, nearly black, with eyes that burned with rage. Kale's wolf was smaller but faster. His fur was deep brown with black markings along his spine. And his eyes were the same warm dark that I knew, that I'd come to recognize, to trust. They circled each other. Then Donovan lunged. The fight was brutal. Teeth and claws, snarls and yelps. Blood splattered on the floor I'd cleaned so carefully. They crashed into tables, sending dishes flying. Kale fought well, but Donovan was winning. He was stronger, more vicious, fighting without mercy even against his own son. He got Kale pinned, jaws around his throat. Not biting down, not yet, but the threat was clear. Submit or die. Kale didn't submit. Donovan bit down. No. The scream tore from my throat. And something inside me broke open. Not cracked. Not stirred. Broke. Like a dam bursting, like chains shattering, like a cage that had held something wild and powerful for 17 years suddenly exploding into pieces. Power flooded through me. White-hot and overwhelming. It poured out of my body in a wave that I couldn't control, didn't understand, couldn't stop. The wave hit everyone. Wolves were thrown backward, even the alphas. Kale and Donovan separated, both crashing into opposite walls. Chairs and tables flew. The candles all extinguished at once, leaving only moonlight streaming through the windows. And I was at the center of it, power crackling around me like lightning, my body glowing with a silver light that shouldn't exist. The pain came next. My bones started breaking. But not like before. Not the incomplete, agonizing shift I'd experienced at 13. This was different. This was my wolf finally emerging after years of dormancy. I fell to my knees screaming. My body convulsed. I felt my spine extending, my jaw elongating, fur erupting across my skin. And then I was her. Was my wolf. I stood on 4 legs, shaking, disoriented. I looked down at paws that were smaller than the other wolves, more delicate. My fur was white. Pure white, like snow, like moonlight. And on my shoulder, visible even through the fur, was a mark. A silver mark that glowed with its own light. A crescent moon surrounded by stars. The hall was completely silent. Then someone gasped. An old voice, cracked with age and shock. The moon's blessing. It was an elderly she-wolf I'd never seen before, probably from one of the visiting packs. She dropped to her knees, her eyes wide. A true Omega. The moon goddess has chosen. That's impossible, Donovan breathed, shifted back to human form, blood streaming from the wound on his neck. True Omegas are legend. They don't. I served one. The elderly wolf's voice was stronger now. 60 years ago, before the Great War. I was just a pup, but I remember. The power, the blessing, the white wolf with the silver mark. She looked at me with something like reverence. They're not legend. They're real. And she's one of them. I shifted back to human, the change easier this time, natural. I stood naked in the center of the hall, someone threw a cloak over me. And stared at the silver mark on my shoulder that was still glowing. What is a true Omega? Kale asked, shifted back as well, holding his bleeding throat. The elderly she-wolf, Elder Mara, I would learn her name was, stepped forward. True Omegas are born once every century, if that. They're bridges between the wolf world and the moon goddess herself. They don't just have enhanced empathy like regular Omegas. They can heal, can influence other wolves, can calm even the most feral alpha. And they're marked by the goddess herself at their first true shift. The first true shift, Mara continued, happens when a true Omega experiences awakening, usually through extreme emotion or danger. Before that, their wolf stays dormant, protecting them, waiting for the right moment. She turned to Alpha Donovan. Tell me, Alpha, when did you find this girl? 10 years ago, Donovan said slowly, his face pale. After a rogue attack. Her parents were killed. Killed or assassinated. Mara's eyes were sharp. Silence. Answer me. Did rogues attack randomly, or was it targeted? I don't know. But Donovan's face said he was starting to suspect. Mara turned to me. Child, what were your parents' names? David and Sarah, I whispered. They were betas. They lived quietly. They were hiding you, Mara interrupted. Protecting you. If someone discovered you were a true Omega before you awakened, before you could defend yourself. She shook her head. They would have killed you. True Omegas are powerful, but they're also threats to those who rule through dominance and fear. I felt like the ground was tilting. My parents were murdered? Because of what I am? Likely. Who? My voice cracked. Who would do that? Before Mara could answer, Ryker laughed. The sound was ugly, triumphant. This is perfect, he said, and I felt his greed, his hunger for power. A true Omega. Do you know what I could do with that kind of asset? The other packs would bow to me. I'd be unstoppable. He shifted, his massive wolf form even more terrifying than before. She's mine, he growled. By right of discovery. I found her, I claimed her, and I'm taking her. He lunged. Kale moved to intercept, but he was injured, still bleeding. Ryker's jaws aimed for my throat. And something in me, the part that had just awakened, the part that was connected to something ancient and powerful, responded. I didn't think. Didn't plan. Just reached for the power that was still crackling under my skin and pushed. The command that came out of my mouth wasn't words. It was pure will, pure power, pure dominance that shouldn't exist in an Omega but did. Stop. Ryker froze mid-leap. Not because he chose to. Because he couldn't do anything else. His wolf hit the ground, whimpering, unable to move. Every wolf in the hall dropped to their knees. Even the alphas. Even Donovan. All except Kale. He stood, staring at me with wonder and something else. Something that made that warmth between us flare bright and hot and undeniable. What Ryker struggled against my command, his eyes wild with fear. What are you? A true Omega, I said, and my voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded older, deeper, touched by something divine. And you will never touch me again. I felt the power thrumming through me, intoxicating and terrifying. I could make them do anything. Could bend their wills, break their minds, force them to obey. But that wasn't what true Omegas were meant for. I knew that somehow, instinctively. I released the command, and the wolves sagged with relief. Ryker shifted back to human, his face pale. This isn't over. Yes, Mara said quietly, it is. She's awakened. She's marked. And if you're smart, Alpha Ryker, you'll leave this territory and never speak of what you saw here. Why would I do that? Because Mara smiled, cold and knowing, if word spreads that a true Omega has awakened, others will come. Those who see her as a threat. Those who killed her parents. And they won't just target her. They'll target anyone connected to her. Anyone who knows about her. Anyone who might reveal her location. The threat was clear. Tell anyone and become a target yourself. Ryker's jaw clenched. Then he turned and stalked toward the exit, his pack scrambling to follow. At the doorway, he paused. You'll regret this, Omega. All of you will. The world isn't kind to things it doesn't understand. Then he was gone. And I stood in the center of the ruined ceremony, wrapped in a borrowed cloak, marked by the moon goddess and absolutely terrified of what came next. Chapter 7. The Choice. The hall cleared slowly. The visiting packs left with murmured excuses, eager to put distance between themselves and the strange Omega who could command Alphas. I felt their fear, their awe, their hunger. Mara was right. I wasn't safe here. Might never be safe again. Thea. Kale approached carefully, like I might bolt. Are you okay? Was I? I'd just discovered I wasn't who I thought I was. That my parents had been murdered. That I had power I didn't understand and couldn't control. That I was marked by a goddess I'd been taught to respect, but never expected to encounter. No, I said honestly. I'm not okay. He reached for my hand, hesitated. May I? I nodded. The moment we touched, the warmth flared. But stronger now. Intense. I gasped, and so did he. What is this? I whispered. I think, Mara said from behind us, making us both jump. That's what we call a mate bond. I stared at her. That's impossible. I'm Omega. He's an Alpha's son. We can't. True Omegas bond differently than regular Omegas, Mara explained gently. They're chosen by the moon goddess, and so are their mates. Bloodline, rank, pack politics, none of it matters. The goddess chooses what she chooses. Kale's grip on my hand tightened. I felt his emotions, wonder, joy, protectiveness, and yes, love. He'd been feeling this all along, I realized. This pull toward me. This need to protect me, to be near me. And I'd felt it too. I'd just been too afraid to acknowledge it. We're mates, he said, and there was certainty in his voice. We were always meant to be mates. Kale. I know it's complicated. I know my family has hurt you. I know you have no reason to trust me or want me or... I kissed him. It wasn't planned. Wasn't thought through. I just needed him to stop talking, needed him to understand that I felt it too, had always felt it, even when I'd been too broken to name it. When we pulled apart, he was smiling. Really smiling, bright and happy, and so beautiful it made my chest ache. I'm going to take that as a yes, he said. Yes to what? To us. To this. To. She has to leave. Alpha Donovan's voice cut through the moment. He stood at the edge of the hall, looking older somehow, diminished. Ryker will talk, no matter what threats Elder Mara made. Word will spread. And when it does, they'll come for her. Who? I asked, though I was afraid I knew. The ones who killed your parents. Donovan's voice was heavy with something that might have been guilt. The ones who see true Omegas as threats to their power. You can't stay in Blackwood. You can't stay anywhere they might find you. Then I'll protect her, Kale said immediately. You can't. Donovan looked at his son with something like regret. You're one wolf, and you're not even Alpha. Against an organized attack, against those who want her dead, you wouldn't stand a chance. Then I'll get stronger. I'll challenge you for the Alpha position, It wouldn't be enough. Mara stepped forward. But I know where she can go. Where she can train, learn to control her power, and be protected until she's strong enough to protect herself. Where? I asked. The sanctuary. Hidden in the northern mountains, protected by wards and ancient magic. It's where true Omegas have always gone to train. How do you know about it? Because I trained there, Mara said simply. 60 years ago, when the last true Omega awakened. I was her guardian. And I can be yours if you'll have me. I looked at Kale, at his hand still holding mine. I can't ask you to come with me, I said quietly. This isn't your fight. Your life is here, with your pack, and I'm coming. No hesitation. No doubt. Where you go, I go. That's what mates do. Your father. Can name Vivian as heir for all I care. Kale turned to Donovan. I renounce my claim to Blackwood Pack. I choose Thea. I choose to be her mate, her protector, and whatever else she needs me to be. Donovan stared at his son for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. Your mother would be proud, he said quietly. She always said you had her heart. Looks like she was right. Something passed between them. Not forgiveness, it was too soon for that, maybe too late. But understanding, maybe. Acceptance. When do we leave? I asked Mara. Tonight. Before Ryker has time to send word to whoever he's going to send it to. We'll take the old paths through the forest. Be at the sanctuary in 3 days if we move fast. I need to get my things. There's no time. Mara's voice was firm. We leave in 1 hour. Bring nothing that can identify you. Nothing that can be traced. 1 hour. I was going to leave the only home I'd known in 10 years with 1 hour's notice. But then I'd left my real home in seconds. Had stumbled from burning wreckage with nothing but a wooden wolf carving and a bleeding soul. At least this time, I was choosing to go. This time, I wasn't alone. I looked down at Papa's carving, still in my pocket where I'd kept it through everything. Can I bring this? I asked Mara. It's all I have from my parents. Mara studied the carving, her expression softening. Yes, family heirlooms carry power of their own. Bring it. 1 hour later, we stood at the edge of Blackwood territory. Mara, Kale, and me. 3 wolves about to disappear into the forest. I looked back at the pack house one last time. 10 years of pain, of invisibility, of survival. But also Kale. Also the discovery of what I really was. Also the moment I stopped being prey and became something the world had forgotten could exist. Ready? Mara asked. I felt Kale's hand find mine in the darkness. Felt his warmth, his certainty, his love. Yes, I said. And we ran into the forest, toward the mountains, toward sanctuary, toward a future I couldn't imagine, but was finally brave enough to fight for. Behind us, I heard a howl. Alpha Donovan, I thought, saying goodbye to his son. And maybe, in his way, saying sorry to me. We didn't look back. We ran through the night, 3 wolves racing toward dawn, toward hope, toward the understanding that sometimes the world ending is just the beginning of becoming who you were always meant to be. I was Thea. I was true Omega. I was marked by the moon goddess. And I was done being invisible. Chapter 8. The Sanctuary. The journey to the northern mountains took 3 days, just as Mara had promised. We traveled in wolf form mostly, faster that way, safer. We avoided roads, avoided other packs, avoided anything that might draw attention. Mara knew paths that seemed to exist only for her, trails that wound through the densest forest where even moonlight struggled to penetrate. At night, when we stopped to rest, Kale would shift back to human and hold me. Just hold me. His warmth chasing away the cold, his heartbeat steady against my ear, his presence reminding me I wasn't alone. Tell me about the sanctuary, I asked on the second night, curled against his chest. I don't know much, he admitted. Just stories. They say it's as old as the wolf bloodlines themselves. Built by the first true Omega and protected by magic that doesn't fade. Are you scared? I asked quietly. Terrified. He pressed a kiss to my hair. But not of the sanctuary. I'm scared of losing you. Scared that whatever you become in that place will be too powerful, too important for someone like me. I pulled back to look at his face in the firelight. Someone like you? You gave up everything for me. Your pack, your family, your future as Alpha. How could you think? Because you're marked by the moon goddess, Thea. His voice was soft, vulnerable. You're destined for something I can't even imagine. And I'm just me. I took his face in my hands. You're my mate. The person the moon goddess chose for me. That makes you exactly who you're supposed to be. He kissed me then, deep and desperate and full of promises we were both afraid to speak aloud. When we pulled apart, Mara was watching us with a sad smile. Young love, she said. It's beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. But remember, the bond between true mates is unbreakable. Whatever comes, whatever she becomes, that won't change. You sound like you're speaking from experience, Kale said. Something flickered across Mara's ancient face. Pain, maybe. Loss. I am, she said simply. But that's a story for another time. Sleep now. Tomorrow we reach the sanctuary, and everything changes. The sanctuary appeared at dawn on the 3rd day. One moment we were climbing through seemingly endless forest. The next, we crested a ridge, and there it was. A valley hidden between mountain peaks, invisible from every angle except this one. Buildings made of white stone that seemed to glow in the early light. Gardens that shouldn't exist at this altitude, somehow thriving despite the thin air and cold. And at the center, a temple with a silver dome that caught the sunrise and scattered it into 1,000 shimmering reflections. It's beautiful, I breathed. It's home, Mara said. For however long you need it to be. We descended into the valley. As we got closer, I saw others, women, mostly, some young like me, some ancient like Mara. All of them turned to watch our approach, and I felt their emotions. Curiosity, hope, recognition. An elderly woman emerged from the temple. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, but she radiated power that made even Mara seem diminished. Elder Cora, Mara said, bowing her head in respect. I've brought her. The new true Omega. Cora's eyes, silver like starlight, locked on me. I felt her gaze pierce through skin and bone, seeing not just what I was, but what I could become. The moon goddess works in mysterious ways, Cora said, her voice surprisingly young for someone who looked ancient. We've been waiting for you, child. Waiting for 17 years. How did you know? I asked. Because the moon told us. She smiled. She always does. Come. There's much to do and little time to do it in. Chapter 9, Training. The first week at the sanctuary, I learned I knew nothing about being a true Omega. You can feel emotions, Cora said during our first lesson. But can you control them? Can you amplify joy or dampen rage? Can you sense lies from truth, intent from pretense? I couldn't. Not yet. You commanded those wolves at the ceremony, she continued. But it was wild, uncontrolled. True power comes from precision. From knowing exactly how much force to apply and where. She was right. I'd thrown out a command like a sledgehammer when a scalpel would have worked better. And healing, Cora touched my shoulder where the silver mark still glowed faintly. That's the greatest gift and the greatest responsibility. To heal, you must first understand pain. Must feel it, absorb it, transform it. Are you ready for that? I wasn't sure, but I nodded anyway. The training was brutal. Every day, Cora pushed me further. She'd have me sit with injured wolves. Broken bones, deep wounds, illnesses, and teach me to take their pain into myself, transform it, send back healing energy. The first time I tried, I screamed. The pain was overwhelming, like being broken and burned and shattered all at once. Breathe through it, Cora commanded. Pain is just information. It can't destroy you unless you let it. I learned to breathe through it. Learned to let the pain flow through me instead of drowning in it. Learned that healing hurt the healer almost as much as it helped the wounded, but it was worth it. Gods, it was worth it. Kale watched from the sidelines, unable to help, his frustration palpable. Let me do something, he begged Mara one evening. I can't just sit here while she suffers. You are doing something, Mara said gently. You're here. You're her anchor. When the pain gets too much, when she wants to give up, she looks for you. And you're always there. That's not nothing, boy. That's everything. And it was true. Every time I thought I couldn't take any more, I'd find Kale's eyes across the training ground, see his faith in me, and somehow find the strength to continue. Weeks became months. I learned to control my empathy, to sense emotions from hundreds of yards away and identify individual feelings in a crowd. I learned to command with precision, not just stop, but step left, or drop your weapon, or tell me the truth. I learned to heal wounds that should have been fatal, to calm wolves on the edge of feral madness, to influence pack dynamics, easing tensions and fostering unity. But the most important lesson came 3 months into my training. There are those who would use you as a weapon, Cora said one evening as we sat in the temple. Who would see your power as a tool for conquest? You must understand, child, you could conquer the wolf world if you wanted. Could bend every alpha to your will, command entire packs, rule through fear disguised as divine authority. I would never. Wouldn't you? Her silver eyes were knowing. If it meant protecting Kale? If it meant preventing another family from burning? If someone threatened those you loved, would you really hold back? I was quiet. Because she was right. I would do terrible things to protect the people I loved. I already knew that about myself. That's why true Omegas are rare, Cora continued. Not because the goddess doesn't create them, but because most can't handle the power without being corrupted by it. The true test isn't whether you're strong enough to command. It's whether you're strong enough not to. How do I pass that test? By remembering what you learned in that basement at Blackwood Pack. Cora's voice was gentle now. You know what it feels like to be powerless, to be at someone else's mercy. Hold on to that. Let it guide you. Power is meant to protect, not dominate. To heal, not harm. Remember that, and you'll be what the wolf world needs. Forget it, and you'll become what they fear. Chapter 10. The Hunter Returns. 6 months into my training, Ryker found us. I felt them before I saw them, the approaching wolves, their emotions a mixture of greed and fear and determination. I was in the temple with Cora when the warning bell rang. How many? Cora asked, already moving toward the armory. I extended my senses. 50. Maybe 60. All rogues, I think. No pack structure to their emotions. Ryker's hired an army. Cora's face was grim. He's not here to talk. We rushed outside. The sanctuary's defenders, about 30 trained Omegas and their mates, were already taking positions. Kale was among them, a sword in his hands, his face set with determination. You should hide, he said when he saw me. I'm the reason they're here, I said. I'm not hiding. The rogues appeared at the valley entrance, and at their head was Ryker. He'd changed in 6 months, harder, scarred, with eyes that burned with madness. Thea, he called out. I know you're there. I can smell your power from here, sweet and intoxicating. Come with me willingly, and I'll spare the others. Refuse, and I'll burn this place the way your parents' house burned. My blood went cold. You, I breathed. It was you. You killed my parents. His smile confirmed it. I couldn't risk a true Omega awakening. They're too dangerous, too unpredictable. But then you survived, and I lost track of you for years. Imagine my surprise when you appeared at that ceremony, marked and powerful and everything I'd feared. You're insane, Kale snarled. I'm practical. Ryker's eyes never left me. With a true Omega under my control, I could unite every pack under my rule. I could create an empire. All I need is you, Thea. Come willingly, or watch everyone you love die. I felt Cora's hand on my shoulder. Don't, she whispered. Don't sacrifice yourself. But I could feel the rogues' bloodlust. Could sense their eagerness for violence. If fighting started, people would die. Good people. People who'd trained me, protected me, given me hope. I couldn't let that happen. I'll go, I said. No. Kale grabbed my arm. Thea, you can't. I can end this without bloodshed. I touched his face, trying to memorize it. Trust me. Please trust me. I trust you, he said desperately. I just don't want to lose you. You won't. I kissed him, quick and fierce. I swear on the moon, you won't. I walked toward Ryker, my hands raised. The rogues parted for me, their emotions shifting to triumph. Smart choice, Ryker said. I knew you'd see reason. I stopped 5 feet from him. Close enough to see the madness in his eyes. Close enough to feel his twisted satisfaction. I'm not coming because I'm afraid, I said quietly. I'm coming because I'm going to show you exactly what a true Omega can do when she's done being prey. His smile faltered. What? I released every bit of power I'd been holding back. Not a command. Not a compulsion. Something deeper. I reached into every rogue's mind simultaneously, made them feel what I'd felt. The terror of being 7 years old and watching my parents burn. The pain of 10 years as an invisible servant. The desperation of being hunted, threatened, treated as property. They collapsed. All of them. 60 rogues on their knees, some weeping, some vomiting from the intensity of the empathy I'd forced on them. This is what you've done, I said, my voice carrying across the valley. This is the pain you've caused. The lives you've destroyed. Feel it. All of it. Ryker was shaking, tears streaming down his face. Stop, he gasped. Please stop. Why? I asked. You didn't stop when my mother begged. You didn't stop when my father fought to protect me. Why should I show you mercy you never showed them? I could kill him. Could crush his mind, leave him a broken shell. Could make him suffer the way he'd made so many suffer. And I wanted to. Gods, I wanted to. Thea. Kale's voice, cutting through my rage. Don't let him turn you into something dark. You're better than this. Better than him. I looked back. Kale stood at the edge of the defenders, his face pleading. You taught me that strength isn't about domination, he said. It's about protection. About choosing mercy even when vengeance would be easier. Don't forget that now. Don't become what he is. He was right. I knew he was right. But it was so hard. I took a breath. Then another. Slowly, carefully, I pulled back the empathy assault. The rogues sagged with relief. I won't kill you, I said to Ryker. But you'll live with what you've done. Every death. Every moment of pain you caused. You'll feel it, remember it, and you'll spend the rest of your life trying to atone. I planted the compulsion deep in his mind. Not to control him, to awaken his conscience. To make him incapable of ignoring the suffering he'd caused. It was a more terrible punishment than death. And we both knew it. Take your rogues and leave, I commanded. Never hunt another true Omega. Never harm another innocent. Spend your life making amends, or the weight of your guilt will destroy you. They fled. 60 rogues scrambling away from me like I was fire itself. And I stood in the center of the valley, shaking with power and rage and the terrible knowledge that I could have destroyed them all. Could have made them suffer. Could have become exactly what Cora had warned me about. But I hadn't. Cale reached me first, pulling me into his arms. I collapsed against him, suddenly exhausted. You did it, he whispered. You chose mercy. I'm so proud of you. I wanted to kill him, I admitted. I wanted him to suffer. I know, but you didn't. That's what makes you extraordinary. Chapter 11, The Return. After Ryker's attack, Cora called me to the temple. Your training is complete, she said. You've mastered control. You've learned to heal and to fight, to command and to show mercy. There's nothing more I can teach you. What do I do now? That's up to you. She smiled. You could stay here, live in safety, hidden from the world. Or you could return. Face the packs that fear you. Show them what a true Omega truly is, not a weapon, but a healer. Not a threat, but hope. I thought about Blackwood Pack. About the Omegas still suffering there and in 100 other packs. About the system that had allowed me to be bought and sold, beaten and broken. I want to go back, I said. I want to change things. Then go with my blessing. Cora touched my shoulder where the silver mark still gleamed. And remember, true power isn't forcing others to submit. It's inspiring them to be better. Cale and I returned to Blackwood Pack on a crisp autumn morning, 7 months after we'd left. Alpha Donovan met us at the border, and I felt a shock. I'd changed. Filled out, grown stronger, carried myself with confidence instead of fear. Thea, he said. You came back. I did. I met his eyes, something I'd never dared do before. I came back to make things right. Over the next weeks, I worked to transform Blackwood from within. I established protections for Omegas, created councils where all ranks had voices, taught the pack that strength came from unity, not domination. It wasn't easy. There was resistance, pushback, wolves who clung to the old ways. But slowly, painfully, things changed. Vivian apologized to me one evening, tears streaming down her face. I was cruel because I was jealous, she admitted. You had something I never did. Kindness, even when the world was cruel to you. I'm sorry. For everything. I forgave her. Not because she deserved it, but because holding on to hate would only poison me. Chapter 12, The Mating. 6 months after our return, Cale and I had our mating ceremony. It was nothing like Vivian's elaborate disaster. We stood under the full moon with our closest friends, wearing simple clothes, speaking simple vows. I choose you, Cale said, his hands holding mine. Not because the moon goddess marked us, though I'm grateful she did. But because you're brave and kind and you see light in darkness. Because you make me want to be better. Because loving you is the easiest and best thing I've ever done. I choose you, I said, my voice steady despite my tears. Because you saw me when I was invisible. Because you protected me when you had no reason to. Because you gave up everything for me, and you've never once made me feel like I owed you. Because you're my home. We completed the bond under starlight, and I felt it snap fully into place, unbreakable, eternal, perfect. That night, Cale told me his secret. I'm not just Alpha Donovan's son, he said quietly. My bloodline goes back to the first Alphas, the ones blessed by the moon goddess herself. That's why our bond is so strong, true Omega and Moon's Alpha. We're meant to restore balance. Together. I asked. Always together. Chapter 13. The Luna Rises. 1 year after my awakening, Alpha Donovan stepped down. He named Kale as Alpha and me as Luna, not just of Blackwood, but as advisor to the Council of Packs that was forming. My role was clear, to help Omegas across all territories. To establish sanctuaries, create laws protecting the vulnerable, teach that different didn't mean lesser. It was working. Slowly, but it was working. Omegas across the region were awakening, not to true Omega power, that was rare, but to their own gifts. Empathy, healing, mediation. They were becoming counselors, healers, peacekeepers. The wolf world was changing. Balancing. Becoming what it was always meant to be. One evening, I stood at my parents' graves with Kale beside me. I placed flowers, white roses, finally available, finally perfect, and whispered, I did it. I became what you protected me to be. I made the world better. I hope that's enough. I hope you're proud. Kale's hand found mine. They are. I know they are. I touched my stomach where our daughter was growing, another true Omega, Cora had confirmed. Another chance for the bloodline to continue. She'll have what I didn't, I said. A safe world. Parents who love her. A future without fear. She'll have you as her mother, Kale said. That's the greatest gift of all. Epilogue, full circle. 5 years have passed since my awakening. I am 22 years old now, Luna of Blackwood Pack and advisor to 6 territories. I've helped establish 7 sanctuaries for vulnerable wolves. I've trained 15 Omegas in their gifts. I've changed laws, shifted perspectives, made the world incrementally better. But right now, in this moment, I'm just a mother. I watch my daughter, Celeste, play in the garden. She's 4 years old with her father's dark hair and my green eyes. The silver mark on her shoulder glows softly when she laughs, which is often. She's everything I never dared dream I could have. Joy. Safety. A future. Mama, she calls. Look what I found. It's a wooden carving, Papa's wolf, the one I've kept all these years. She must have found it in my study. That's beautiful, I say, kneeling beside her. Do you know what it is? A wolf. She traces the carved fur with small fingers. Like us. Like us, I agree. My father made this for me when I was 7 years old. He gave it to me on my birthday right before. I stop. She's too young for that story. Too young to know about fire and murder and loss. Someday I'll tell her. Someday she'll need to know where she came from, what she carries, what she represents. But not today. It's special, I say instead. And now it's yours. To remind you that you come from wolves who were brave and strong and loved you before you were even born. She clutches it to her chest, delighted. Kale appears, scooping her up, making her shriek with laughter. Our son, 2-year-old Finn, toddles after them, demanding his turn. I watch my family, my impossible, beautiful family, and I think about that 7-year-old girl who stumbled from burning wreckage. I think about the 17-year-old servant who scrubbed floors and bled and survived. I think about the terrified young woman who discovered she was more than anyone had told her she could be. The world ended for me when I was 7 years old, I say quietly, and Kale pauses, understanding that I need to speak this. Need to mark how far we've come. I learned that being Omega meant being prey. That love could be stolen. That safety was illusion. That I was worthless. I look at my children, at my mate, at the gardens surrounding the pack house that's now truly home. But I learned something else, too, I continue. I learned that endings are just beginnings in disguise. That broken things can heal. That prey can become predator, can become protector. That the labels the world gives you don't define you, your choices do. Celeste brings me the wooden wolf. Tell the story, Mama. About the brave wolf. So I do. I tell her about a wolf who was small but fast, who was counted out but never gave up, who learned that true strength wasn't about domination but protection. I don't tell her it's my story. Not yet. But someday she'll understand. Someday she'll face her own fires, her own darkness. And when she does, I hope she remembers this, that she comes from a line of wolves who survived impossible things, who chose mercy over vengeance, who built light in darkness, who refused to stay invisible. The moon rises overhead, full and bright. I feel the goddess's presence, gentle and approving. Thank you, I whisper to her, for marking me, for giving me Kale, for this life I never expected. The warmth that answers feels like a smile, like blessing, like promise. I am Thea Ravensong, true Omega, Luna of the Packs, daughter of the moon. They tried to burn me alive when I was 7. They tried to break me for 10 years. They tried to bury me when I awakened. They didn't know I was a seed. They didn't know that fire clears the ground for new growth. That breaking makes room for healing. That burial is just planting in disguise. I became the forest they tried to burn. I became the change they feared. I became exactly what the moon goddess knew I could be. And I'm just getting started. Kale wraps his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my head. The children play at our feet. The pack moves through evening routines, safe and whole and balanced. This is what I fought for. This is what I survived for. Not just my own happiness, though I cherish it, but the world my children will inherit. A world where Omegas are treasured, not discarded. Where strength protects the vulnerable. Where love is louder than hate. Where a 7-year-old girl who loses everything can still find her way home. What are you thinking about? Kale asks. I turn in his arms, kiss him softly. That the world ended for me on a Thursday. But it began again on a Friday. And every day since has been worth surviving for. Every day, he smiles. Every single one. The moon rises higher. The pack settles. Our children laugh. And I stand in the center of the life I built from ashes, marked by the moon, surrounded by love, and finally at peace. This is my testimony. This is my truth. I was Thea the Broken. I became Thea the Awakened. Now I'm simply Thea, mate, mother, Luna, and proof that the worst day of your life doesn't have to define you. That endings are never final. That even from fire and ash and impossible pain, something beautiful can grow. The wooden wolf sits in Celeste's small hands, connecting past to present to future. My father carved it with love. I carried it through hell. My daughter will carry it forward. And the story continues. The end.